Hello there everybody, it is me Leo and welcome back to another video. So today we're back with another speed build and this time we're building a restaurant venue called the GOOGIE Restaurant. A lot of you guys have asked for this. I built a similar style build last week when I built the GOOGIE style house. But this time I really wanted to build a community lot venue because it's been a while since I've done one, so I thought it would be a really interesting build to try to build like a retro 50s/60s inspired restaurant, and that is what we're gonna try to do right now. Apologies if you guys can hear all of the traffic noise outside. I'm recording this, it's 12 a.m. but for some reason the traffic just doesn't want to stop, so I'm actually crying right now. I'm just kidding, but yeah, it's kind of like the bane of my existence at this point. It's kind of like the bane of my YouTube existence at this point, like all of this traffic outside my apartment. I literally want to throw rocks at all of the cars making noise outside every time they pass by when I'm recording something. That is the rage of the freezer bunny. Anyway, back to this build. I actually initially was gonna build this as a casino. I think I mentioned in my previous video, I think I commented it actually, that I wanted to build a casino next. Well, I actually got quite far into building this into a casino. Unfortunately, something just didn't feel right. Like, I had to improvise a lot on like the different slot machines and stuff. I actually was almost done with that build. I'm gonna say maybe 80% done with the casino, but in the end I decided to scrap it because it just didn't feel right. Something about it just felt a little bit off, and I felt much stronger making this into more of like a roadside restaurant. So that's kind of like the idea that I went with in the end. Most of the exterior I did keep. I do some minor changes with the exterior, but basically the concept for these rainbow colored pylons, because initially when I was making the casino I had an idea of making it kind of like inspired by the legend of having gold at the end of the rainbow, you know, so beyond the casino doors, or like beyond the rainbow pylons, there's gold and there's riches. I wanted to have that metaphor and that irony, but as I moved forward and as I was developing my concepts, I just felt a lot stronger making this into a restaurant. So later on you guys will see that I do make some changes to those pylons. I changed the color, and overall they just had a different vibe in the end, so that's pretty cool. But my main inspiration for this was actually Johnny's coffee shop. The shape is pretty much inspired, not literally, but the quirkiness and kind of like the playful aspect of GOOGIE architecture, I tried to capture that. I've also seen some car washes that had these rainbow pylons in front of them, so that's kind of where I got the idea for that. But I'm talking a lot about GOOGIE architecture. I think a lot of you guys might not be familiar with it, especially if you haven't seen my previous videos. So just a quick refresher course on GOOGIE architecture. It evolved in the 1940s and it was a popular style up until the 1950s and 1960s. The term GOOGIE actually comes from the GOOGIE's restaurant in Hollywood. Actually, no, I actually stand corrected. It was the GOOGIE's Cafe in Hollywood. It was designed by American architect John Lautner, who actually apprenticed for Frank Lloyd Wright, and that's actually a nice little piece of information that I learned while researching more on GOOGIE architecture. But it was mainly influenced by space age technology and nuclear technology. It was a very popular style, especially for commercial establishments, namely roadside restaurants and diners, coffee shops, and even car washes. I think a car wash would be a really interesting thing to build in The Sims actually, but I don't think that's possible since we don't have cars yet. Who knows? But GOOGIE architecture is mainly influenced with space age shape. So this build has a lot of those key characteristics. Like a very recognizable trait of GOOGIE style is the upswept roof. So the roofs are flared out. Let's see here. You guys can see on the side, it has this sort of like boomerang shape because they were all about things that are in motion at the time, like locomotives and generally things that are in motion, like rocket ships and like alien spaceships. Those were generally the shapes that were inspirational to the designers at that time, and I have seen some alien spaceship looking GOOGIE homes. I thought that they were really nice and quirky, but for this one I just tried my best to make it look like a roadside restaurant mixed with a diner. So yeah, I think it came out really well in the end. Actually, I really enjoyed doing this build. It's been a while since I've done a restaurant, even though I have done a lot of restaurants before. I've also done a Let's Play on Dine Out, and I really kept my experiences in mind with that Let's Play because I noticed that restaurants can tend to be really, I guess, really difficult on the game. I have heard a lot of people express their difficulties with managing restaurants because people get stuck, things don't work the way they're supposed to work. So I did my best to make this into a fully functional restaurant, and I have tested this out already and it does work perfectly. I mean, I'm not gonna say perfectly, but it works really well, nothing glitches out. And yeah, you guys can go ahead and purchase this restaurant if you want your Sims to manage this as their own personal piece of property. You can also, of course, bring your Sims here and grab a bite to eat from this restaurant's diner inspired menu. And I also put an arcade on the second level, so you guys can also bring your Sims over here if they want to play some arcade games, maybe hang out with a club and all of that stuff. So yeah, this is the point where I changed my concept from building a casino into building a restaurant. And I think you guys probably saw me change that sign in front. I initially chose like a sign that had darts, but of course, since I changed the main use of this building, I had to change the sign into more of like a restaurant-y sign. So that's that. I also changed the colors of the pylons in front to match that diner sign in front, and I really like it actually. Neon signs and just signages in general are very big deal during the 50s and 60s. You know, like dedicated art styles existed specifically for designing signages, and for this one I really took it to new heights, if I do say so myself, because I just experimented with the possibilities of having these signages, and let me tell you guys, I feel like they really help out a lot because they just make the builds look so much more realistic. I'm loving these cursive signages. I ended up using this one right here, the one that we're placing right now. It honestly makes the place look like a department store now that I'm looking at it, but it kind of looks like a Macy's type of thing. I don't know, but it looks really awesome. I love the retro vibe that I'm getting with it, so that's kind of just what I went with. There's a lot of plastics in this build, lots of plastics, linoleum, steel, and glass. And there's also some stone accents as well on the outside. And I thought that those are just very iconic little materials that were also quite popular during the 50s and 60s. I imagine this to be a little bit more of a 60s because there's more emphasis on, I guess, space agey stuff, even though it's not like literal space age, but you guys can clearly see from some of the furniture, like the legs are outstretched. I feel like that makes it feel a lot more space agey, but I mentioned in my previous build that a lot of the cartoons that I watched growing up were actually inspired by GOOGIE architecture, like the art styles of the cartoons that I watched. Like the Jetsons, I mentioned in my previous builds, but I've read somewhere that the Powerpuff Girls was also inspired. It was either GOOGIE architecture that inspired the Powerpuff Girls or Streamline Modern or both of those. One of you guys commented Jimmy Neutron. Brings back so much nostalgia. And The Incredibles, which I think there's gonna be a sequel to that actually, right? Am I right? Initially, let me tell you, I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit of a story. The first time I watched The Incredibles was during a family reunion at my uncle's house. Of course, typically that would be really boring for a kid because it's all about the adults and stuff. But it recently just came out. I think it came out on the Disney Channel. I watched it on the Disney Channel, and let me tell you guys, I was glued on my uncle's television. It was like this retro TV as well. By the way, my uncle's house used to be our grandparents' home, and he inherited it, but it had like lots of retro furniture and stuff. But anyway, I was literally glued on the TV because I was hooked, to be honest. I was really invested in like the characters and their relationships with each other, and having a sequel to that would be a very interesting thing to watch. So I'm looking forward to seeing the sequel for The Incredibles. I also thought about building the house from The Incredibles, but I've seen some other people do it already, so not quite sure about that. But back to the build, I really love the interior because it's kind of like a mixture of definitely diner, but also like a contemporary freshness because yes, I did use a lot of red and whites, but to contrast with that, I chose this sky blue seafoam looking linoleum floor, and there's like some green accents which I thought was kind of fresh looking. I don't know why. I just really love that floor. I think the floor just really sells it to me. I'm so happy. Like, just looking at the floor makes me so happy. I don't know why. I might be cray-cray, but whatever. But yeah, also I used a lot of ceilings for this. I mean, it's not actually ceilings, it's more of like, I guess, shelves. But yeah, I used them as ceilings, and let me tell you guys, they really deliver. You know, they make it look more realistic. I'm obsessed with this little bar area in front because you can kind of see through it, and you can kind of see like the cooking happening in the kitchen, and above the bar there's like this little sign. It's the exact same cursive sign that I had outside, and I just wanted to carry on continuing that branding because I feel like that's really important for like dining establishments like this. And I just really like that actually. I really love that little ceiling area above the bar. I know a lot of you guys are probably wondering, why are so many like dining establishments using red? Well, when I was in architecture school, I had this, like, literally, this is no joke, we had this class called color rendering. It was basically mainly teaching us like color theories and how to, you know, like where to use it and how to properly use it, and just the general principles. And you know, it also taught us like watercolors and just, you know, all of that stuff. So red is actually a very enticing color. Apparently it gives you like more appetite. I don't know how that happens, but I guess psychologically, like when people see red, they become hungry or something like that. That's why a lot of the biggest like fast food chains have red. They have a lot of red, like McDonald's, KFC. In my country, the biggest like fast food chain, it's called Jollibee. It's just like McDonald's actually, and I like literally there's one downstairs from where I live. Well, it's like more of like right next door, but a lot of it actually inspired the interior for this, like the seating layouts and stuff. But to be honest, I think it actually came out looking really realistic. I am super happy with this, to be honest. Like, I'm just like super happy. I've had an incredibly stressful week at work as well, so the one thing I was looking forward to was just doing this build, and I don't know, it just made me so happy. So yeah, working on the kitchen area, I put 2 chef stations. There's one that has this cutout on the wall, so some of the diners, some of the people who are dining in the restaurant, they can actually see through the kitchen. I thought that was a really clever little idea. I really like that. And they're also really functional as well. I've actually already filmed the house tour for this build, and it's one of those unique situations where I actually had my game unpause and I had some Sims come over and, you know, grab something to eat, and it's all really cinematic and it's all, you know, it's all unpaused, which is not something that I typically do because my game tends to lag when I'm recording the game unpaused, like in the cinematic walkthrough parts. But for this one, I felt like it was just a nice change, and you can see how alive this area is, even though when I first started recording the interior, like you guys can probably even see it in the walkthrough later when you watch it. Like literally the only people are the chefs and my 3 Sims that I moved into this save, and eventually people started coming, and it showed me how functional this was. So I was quite happy. I really enjoyed it. And yes, I'm actually probably going to be playing in this in my own personal gameplay, even though I barely have time to play any game because I'm just incredibly busy at work. But yes, this little area behind the kitchen, it's kind of like the pantry slash, I don't know what to call this area, to be honest. Like, I'm so bad. Like, I'm supposed to know all of these technical terms and I don't even know what to call this area. I guess it's more of like we're just gonna call it the back of the house, because that is a technical term that we use in architecture. It's generally refers to the area behind, well, not necessarily behind, it just refers to the area that the guests or the customers are not supposed to see. That's why it's called back of the house. So this is mainly kind of like the employee area and also like the dishwashing. Ooh, that's actually quite an appropriate name for this. It's kind of like the storage pantry slash dishwashing area. Yeah. So at this point, I actually furnished this little area at the back, and I made it into kind of like a memorabilia section. I feel like a lot of these retro type venues in real life have that little memorabilia section, but I did not feel like it was necessary for this because I was beginning to realize that this was becoming a little bit too big for my liking. So I actually took out like a huge, not necessarily huge, but a considerable section of the ground level, especially at the back, because there was supposed to be 2 bathrooms on the ground floor and then another one on the second floor. I had to take out the 1 bathroom on the ground floor and the rest of kind of like the memorabilia section. But you know, I find a place for the memorabilia in some random wall later on. But you guys probably noticed how I forgot to put like the proprietor stand, I believe is what it's called. It's the stand where the sim that welcomes people, you can the place where you can ask for like a table. I forgot to place it at the start, and I knew that I didn't want to put it in front because technically, like in real life, diners, they wouldn't really have that. You know, it would be more in like a formal restaurant, but I managed to put it at the back where no one can see it, mainly because it is a required item for restaurants. So if I wanted to make this fully functional, I had to put it at some point, so I just put it at the back, like next to the toilet. But it still works. Also, you guys probably saw me put a jukebox, and then above it, it's kind of like a memorabilia section for like famous personalities throughout the decades that have come here to visit and to dine. They probably most likely have gotten their photo taken at the venue, and that kind of serves as like the memorabilia. So yeah. Anyway, working on this second level, apologies if you guys can hear this. Oh my gosh, what is happening? Why is this goddamn motorcycle so loud? It's like freaking 1 a.m. I'm literally about to throw rocks. Like, I don't have rocks on me, but I'm gonna throw bottles of like green tea. That sounds really evil. But anyway, for this upper floor area, I imagine this to be more of like, well, during the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I imagined this area to be more of like a viewing lounge deck type of thing, maybe like a smoking area. But eventually, it got renovated during the 80s to accommodate more seating for guests who are actually dining. So that's why you guys can see in this level, there's more 80s memorabilia. There's some, I'd like to think, 80s movie posters. And there's also, of course, some arcade machines as well. And a little foosball table. And I think this is a very interesting floor because I had like such a good variety of seating arrangements right here. Like, I learned this from one of my college professors. He actually specializes in designing resorts. But I was doing a presentation on a floor plan I did for a hotel, and that hotel had like a little restaurant at the ground floor, and the one thing he was missing was variety when it comes to seating. So he told me that we always need to have like a couple seating, we have to have like a group, and for a family and all of that stuff. So I tried to incorporate that knowledge into this, and hopefully I think it makes it a lot more realistic looking. I really like that. Also, I'm using these like arcade machines that I don't really use a lot of in my builds, but these ones came with Get Together, I believe, and I'm happy that I was able to find a place for them because they are quite large. I mean, normally arcade machines would not be that big, but those ones are quite large, but they filled in the space really well. The Sims will actually dine in this area. When you actually come here to visit, there are probably going to be Sims eating on this level as well, so that made me really happy. When I was filming the house tour, I saw like a couple eating here, and I was so happy. Mortimer Goth was also on like the arcade machine, so that made me really happy as well. So yeah, everything is pretty functional, which just makes me super happy. Anyway, yeah, there's also a lot of ceiling work happening on the second floor as well. And then I had to put like an outdoor dining area because we just had to. Like, this little balcony was perfect for that, so I just went and got some tables with parasols. I think there's 3. Yeah, I went for 3. And yeah, I think they filled in the space really well. I placed these without using move objects, so I had to make sure that they worked, and they do. Oh, by the way, I'm using those plants actually that the Sims team was kind enough to take apart, because those plants, it came in clusters of 3. I believe those came with either laundry, day stuff, or like jungle adventure, but they came in clusters of 3 and they took it apart for us to be able to use them individually. But pretty much to wrap up this build, I am just putting in some decorative cars on the outside. There's literally no landscaping outside because there's no space for that, but yeah, I think having the cars out there was really nice because it made it all look really realistic. But it looks like that is going to be it for this build, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up my commentary right here. So I hope you guys like this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed enough to help support the channel by sharing the video and also subscribing as well, and also leaving a comment and a like will be very much appreciated as well. So thank you all so much for watching. You all have an awesome day. Enjoy the rest of the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.